ice cream, logical cream, flavors. Let's make a move, get away. What's your flavor? Tell me what it is again. What you like, get it twice. What's your style? Let's get crazy, let's get lit, let's get wild. Take you out, show you off. What's your flavor? Tell me what it is again. Anywhere in the world, take it mild. Show me the real, you go and let it out. Your flavor, vanilla mix on brown.
What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Icon E, and we here on 95 South TV. Once again, first and foremost, I want to thank God for this opportunity to be on this great platform with great guests and my great co-hosts. You know what I'm saying? And without, you know what I'm saying? So, I got my right-hand man, Mr. Jacob the Great in the building. You know what I'm saying? What's going on, fam?
What's up, man? You know, a chance and a choice another day to get it right, man. Blessed by the best.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, man, go ahead and introduce, man, this mogul, man. I'll read his bio, man, and shoot, this dope everything, boy. Good Lord.
Yeah, man. We have none other than music executive, Mr. Oscar Sanchez. What's up, my brother? How are you?
Hello, people. Thank you for having me on the show today. I greatly appreciate it, man.
No doubt, no doubt. So, man, before we get into your story, man, when people want to know who is Oscar Sanchez, what type of answer is that?
Well, first of all, nowadays I always say I'm a dad. You know, first that's the first answer. But other than that, music producer, A&R executive, video director, passionate, New York City, Latino growing up.
Okay, man. So, man, you've been in this music industry a very long time. The music industry, the music business a very long time. So, where did it start for you at?
It started for me really when I was young, like about 16, when I Union Square was really close to my house, and I didn't want to hang around the neighborhood anymore. So instead of just going to the local neighborhood people's houses and parties like that, I decided to sneak into the clubs. Back then, you know, being able to go into the clubs, you used to have to be like 18. But as long as you dress the way and you look like you fit in the spot, they pull you right in. And that's what I did. Every time we hung out, had a couple of drinks in the park, and then cruised on out to Union Square and went over to the Undergroundplatinu, Ballroom, all those places. And that's when music was really being broken back then. You know, there was no Spotify and things of that nature. All the hit records were being broken at the club based on reactions. So I got to hear stuff really early, see artists perform. It was like my little entrance into the culture since I was accepted there. And it just made me grow more passionate about being a bigger personality each week after week, learning dances, learning everything.
Okay. So, man, you started heavy into was it heavy into the street promotions and the club promotions at first?
I was basically first living the club life. My first aspect out of that was actually trying to work with doing promotions. So, because all the promoters knew me. So it was really easy for me. Hey, let me do the door. Give me a couple of bucks, but let me do this. And they would do that. And eventually I would be able to have, like, if I wanted to, like a party night, but it was too much. And I was by myself. So I didn't want to take that responsibility all on hand. So I would just work the doors to a lot of places, like Palladium, a lot of spots that they asked me to back in the day.
Okay, so with you working the door, did that get you noticed from artists, different promoters, radio personalities, managers?
No, that all came around later on. Basically, me being a personality in the spot. When you used to go to these places, this was social media before social media was around. The same way people create profiles, you would have to create your personality and invest in it and invest your time, your passion, who you are, like your cool points, all that stuff, all inside the club, and be able to see who's who. You know, one of my jobs I ended up getting because I saw the CEO of a record label in the club sitting down.
Okay. So knowing the who's who, and knowing or seeing or meeting the who's who, and getting connected with those type of people, man, how was how important was that for you at an early age?
That was huge because I came from a family that wasn't so structured. So for me, out of the house was peace. Out of the house going to the clubs was where I found my empire, my connection. I had friends. I had people that family, that people that started looking after me like that. And I grew into the culture really quickly. So it was, as the culture was growing around me, I was part of that same rhythm. What they call nowadays algorithms, you used to have to create that for yourself back then as a person.
Okay, okay. So man, early on, man, the expression of hip hop, where did that take your mind? What did that do for you as as a young man?
As a young man, you could imagine if you have an insight in something that's pulsing and thriving, you already look that way different. I grew up in an Italian neighborhood, so being Spanish already in an Italian neighborhood made me look a lot different. But the other aspect was really just really creating that persona, like I told you, and then having that insight because I was growing up around the stuff that I loved. Like when people say you're going to be successful in life if you follow your job and do something you love, not something you hate. In that same sense, I was taking my understanding and seeing the diversity of music, people, cultures, how people lived, because it was basically like Spanish, Black, Portuguese, Italian. It was a mix of everybody. And we all grew up in the scene, whether people were writers or what do you call dancers or hustlers or things of that nature. That was all coming together in the club. And that was, like I said, pre-social media. So for me, it gave me a presence and it gave me an identity. Did I later take that to a different level? Yes, I did, because I just didn't get caught up with, like, let's just say, like the Saturday Night Fever, Tony Manero cycle of just repeating, going to the clubs and coming back home and doing that cycle. Eventually, I realized that that's not a life to live. I want to be the guy that has my name on these records instead. And how do I go about doing that?
Okay, okay, okay. And so man, a lot of people talk about the early days of hip hop, breakdancing, DJing, MCing, the graffiti artists. And with you being, from New York, and with you seeing that, man, what are some of the memories that you have that you really even, share with your children, with your nieces and nephews, or just share with younger artists that don't really know the art and the essence of hip hop?
One of the hardest things you could ever explain to people sometimes is the feelings of energy, because energy is what was inside these moments. And that's exactly what enabled me. Like the first time I heard the bridge, I was like in Mars Ballroom, and we're from Manhattan. All of a sudden, these things are Mars Ballroom had there's these big ass speakers towards like the stage area. I mean, these things were huge. They were like little buildings. And man, blasting that here in KRS-One, things of that nature here in Rakim, people really dancing. There was no cell phones for people to stand on, you know what I'm saying? People were trying to negotiate poly, as they used to say it back in the day, or terms later became what? Networking, right? That term. Back then, that's what it was. Oh, you're in the club, you're in the spot, you have a certain precedence. Just walking around, being there. You know what I'm saying? And then they see you in the next spot. And they see you in the next hot spot. All right, well, this guy's part of the scene. And that's how we grew up. And I was one of the first ones in my neighborhood to do that. So I went by myself and I established myself.
Okay, okay. I can.
All right. We're going to take a quick second break. We'll be right back here on 95 South TV. Okay, we back here on 95 South TV. We are music mogul, Oscar Sanchez. So let me ask you this question. So
yeah, you were quiet there for a little bit, Aki, and I was like wondering when you were going to come in and ask me a question.
Oh yeah, that's how we kind of do it, man. We don't try to jump on each other's questions and stuff. We try to do this thing structured or whatever. So anyway, so you work with Violator and you work with Def Jam. So basically, what was your role with the Violator as far as like you working side by side with Chris Lighty, or how did that dynamic go?
I came into Def Jam as an intern, and really, the only thing I really knew was music. Because I really was to say, a little smarter than most people in the neighborhood, and I'd be able to categorize things and memorize things and understand things and look at things like, I guess that's why I produce records now, because I'm able to look at things like a movie in my mind and dissect things and be able to put things together. So when I went to Def Jam, all I knew was music. A lot of these executives were people that were put on, but they didn't really know a lot of the music. They didn't even know a lot of the music they had in their old catalog or all that. So at the time, I realized that the only way to get in was to find your niche inside there. My niche was the reliability of being a library for these people. And that's how I broke myself in, offering my services as an intern, growing up through there, and then taking that as an everyday lifestyle. So for me, there was no school, I would go there. I would finish school, whatever, but my whole focus was there. I would work there all damn day and be there and be available and be resourceful. So just like the executives, everyone came in at 9 and I left at 5, 6 o'clock every day. And inside there, Leor Cohen saw me and I started applying myself more towards his area of workspace. And he got to know me a little bit better. There was a guy that was a total mess up. And I remember what you told me, don't curse. And so they threw him out for being lazy and not taking care of business at the time. So they put me in as an assistant A&R. And then after that, Chris Lighty was coming in from Violator because he just put out the album with, Warren G, the song, Regulate. And now he had a full label distribution with Def Jam, and he was coming to New York City because he always used to operate out of the West Coast for a while when I used to speak to him on the phone. And so he came to New York, and kind of like my world over here was a little different at Def Jam than it was like, even though it was an intern, like I came into Def Jam already like back then popping, as they say. Like back then the hottest car was like the Pathfinder, would be equivalent today of like an Escalade or something. So I came in there popping with a Pathfinder, talking it in the executive lot, and Chris was like, who the hell is this guy? Who has this car there? He was like, that's the intern. He was like, that's the intern that got that? He was like, yeah. So he was just like, yo, let me see what's up. We ended up talking, one thing for another, and then Leo was like, I want you to work together with Chris. And then that's how we got everything started. One thing led to another, and basically I just became an A&R through there at the same time as an A&R for Def Jam. So the good part is being first an assistant, it allowed me to see what contracts were. It allowed me to see what all that structure was. It wasn't just all about being creative. So I learned so much being able there at the first hand. It was basically my school. That's why I do what I do.
Okay, so working with Chris Lighty, and we always hear stories about Chris Lighty and who he was. But what, in your opinion, made Chris Lighty special or different than what other maybe management companies or people of his ilk was?
Good question. One of the best traits I've learned from Chris was to listen in conversations before you speak. A lot of times people disclose what they're going to say, what they're thinking, and their next 4 or 5 moves ahead, just in them speaking. He was very passionate working with his artists. He was what you call a gentleman tough guy. He had a presence about him, and he also had a street presence about him. Not that he was a criminal, but a street presence of a stand-up guy. That was so needed in the world of false truths, like the industry was. There's a lot of people who are false, and his truth scared a lot of people. So he was able to decipher between what's real and what's the bullshit. Sorry, you know what I'm saying out there, and actually be able to create real business. He was one of the first people who wasn't scared about pushing artists to a corporate degree, where corporates were like, "Oh no, we can't do this." No, here he is pushing Busta Rhymes, creating deals with Sprite. Here he is doing Fubu and doing the Gap. You know, he did a lot later on to show what he did with 50 Cents and all that. Obviously, he was one of the most amazing managers that there ever was in the history of hip hop because he laid out the ground. Another key person, Mona Scott, who worked alongside him because they both were an amazing team. They both created what is not even replicated today. There's no company. You would say maybe Rock Nation, but they were Violator was the groundwork for all of them, you know. Besides Def Jam, I would say it's being the best label ever in hip hop. I would say the best management company is definitely Violator.
Okay, so I have another question before I get back to Jacob.
Go
Because
for it.
I got a lot of questions, but I don't want to take
It's
over.
all right. Go ahead. That's what we're here for.
But what's the misconception, your biggest misconception about Lyra Cohen that you've heard over the years?
Good question. And I don't know if you'll ever see this, but Leo is another one that's very iconic in his way. And why I say that is because he was a guy that came into a culture that would knowingly would be hard on him, knowingly would close the doors on him. But yet he was able to work in such pivotal places and points and with people in a time when it was surging, that he was that other key for people to see that bridge to success. If you understand what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
Dior made his vision a reality by creating, let's just say, the forefront of what a premier rap label is. If you look at Def Jam's catalog, it's amazing.
Yes.
Okay, it's what we hold ourselves to as an identity for a lot of 60-year-old people, because that's what was the culture. Today, these labels are running because of people like Leo. As much people want to say, oh, he was bad, he did this deal, he did that. You know, a lot of people are quick to say something without understanding the behind the scenes, without understanding the details. Everyone's saying, oh, there's always this happening or against the artist or this, but no one's saying how much this is being spent. No one's looking at those books. No one's looking at these things. So, you know, it's just a lot of barbershop talk that's circling around. And it's no different on the internet. You look at all these podcasts, it's crazy. You're like, oh my God, they're still talking about stuff that's 30 years ago as a predominant topic. That's crazy.
Okay. Well, we're going to take another quick break, and I'm going to let Jacob jump back in here on 95 South TV. We back. Jacob, go ahead and jump in.
I will say, since you spoke on Mona Scott, that's one of my favorite people. And I'm gonna tell you why she's a favorite person of mine.
I'm going to need you to
I remember
repeat
when I
that.
was managing.
Broke up completely as you said that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, good.
Okay, so the reason why Mona is one of my favorite people, because y'all was talking about her earlier. So is I remember when Violator was running and I was trying to get in contact with her. A promoter wanted to bring the artist down, from Violator, and it wasn't that hard to get in contact with her, even though her personal assistant answered the phone first. But when she took my name and number and said Mona would return your call, she did that. You know what I mean? And she also plugged me with Shy Money XL, you know, who used to be on G Unit. So So when it comes to people nowadays, I think that in the era that we came up in, people really had it was still a conversation that you can have with people, even though they might be up here and you might be trying to work your way to the top. People still gave you a chance so they can hear what you had to say. Now, so and nowadays, it seems like it's really hard to get into contact with people a lot of times
It's,
unless somebody knows somebody else. You know what I
it's
mean?
basically a siphoned communication. You know, things at that time were a lot more tangible. So you were able to maybe go to the record company and go through those doors and see somebody live and be able to do all that. Nowadays, you're really focused on emails, you know, phone calls or voicemails and things of that nature, but mostly emails. So things become a lot harder for you to connect or to get to this person to get to the next person. Whereas before, in my era growing up, you would see these people out. You would see these people, you know what I'm saying, in within the mix and eventually connect with them some way, somehow. You're
Right.
right. Things change, man. But what do you expect? That's like 25 years from
Yeah.
ahead of time. You know what I'm saying?
You're right. You're
So
right.
thinking
And
about if we're speaking like, if we were in the 60s and saying that, we would be talking about what, 1945, 1930? You know,
right,
this
right, right,
communication
right,
is going
right,
to be
right.
way different. And so it's going to get even way more different, in the next 10 years.
That's
So,
true.
me personally, I love technology, much easier.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It's got its great points, but it's also
Whatsoever. I
it,
love it. It's simplicity. I grew up as a computer kid in the Commodore, so all this is love.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You just gotta move along with the times. That's all.
Hmm.
Just gotta just move on along with the times. So Def Jam 25th anniversary. You was there for that, correct?
Yeah, I was blessed to have
So
on that. Definitely awesome, awesome time for Def Jam because it's
so
like the
tell
platform
me about
or the
right.
catalog what defines Def Jam.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Not that the artists
Right.
nowadays they did it. I think 10 years later, they had their new rendition. But you're talking about the Public Enemies, the Redmans, the LL Cool J's, all that foundation music. Longevity music that Def Jam has. Awesome
Right.
stuff.
So during the anniversary celebration, what was that experience like?
That's basically was just really going through a lot of the catalog and pulling out the most popular songs at that time to present as the, let's just say, like the staple for the company.
Okay. Okay. Now, have you always been a music producer, or would you always in the background producing music, or like how did that come full fledged for you?
Everything came through a lot more in play for Def Jam when I got into Def Jam. I grew up making pause tapes and listening to everybody that I could and trying to copy that on the mix on little cassette tapes. You know what I'm saying, in my house, in my mother's house, driving her crazy, trying to put together like my way of trying to put together equipment somehow. And she would just yell at me and say, "You're gonna ruin my tape decks," or this, you know what I'm saying, you all that stuff. So I had no idea about equipment or none of that stuff until I started coming into Def Jam and started seeing that these records were made this way. And an amazing person that first broke the door for me was this A&R by the name of Drew Dixon, and she took me one day into the studio, and in the studio that day was KRS-One. KRS-One was my idol, man. Grew up listening to the clubs, dancing, all the stuff, amazing. But now I'm here with him, and we're talking about the record that he's making, and it was crazy because that allowed me to understand. I guess KRS also saw in me that I wasn't starstruck. I was really caring about the sounds of how things were coming about. And when I started describing things to Leor, everything was described in a producer's perspective. I became a producer before I became a beat maker. And I was producing records because I was hearing, like I said, how they should sound, what's correct, what's not. And this was still in the time where they were using reels. You know, when Pro Tools came about, my life was so much easier because I could just tell the engineer, hey, look, see that part right here? Let's take this out, flip this around this way. And that's what became my first. As I grew into that, I got tired of asking people to do this, do that for me. And people would react like if they had the key to heaven. And so for me, I was like, that bothered the crap out of me. So I was like, if they're not that intelligent, I'm more intelligent than them. I could definitely figure out what they're doing with this if I get my hands on these type of stuff. And that's what I did. You know what I'm saying? I let it be. Not until like a couple of years ago, though, did I really forefront with it as a mainstay, because it became my addiction. It really did. It's amazing to be an executive and do all that, but there's no greater high than being the creative and seeing what you do, what you feel, what you see, manifested into a reality, manifested into inspiring an artist to do what you see happening. You know, that's the beautiful part about production. But this has all been a blessing for me because no one sat down with me and told me, hey, Oscar, this is where the bar is. This is where the chord is. This is how you play soul music. This is how you play Latin music. This is all that stuff. God's blessings, you know, to the point that, yeah, I'll sit down with whoever and do what I got to do. There ain't no fear. It's just success.
Okay, okay. And so for you, man, with you being in the music business early on in your life, man, as far as how you feel, man, what do you feel about the change of music, like
I
the
knew,
new wave of music?
I knew music is always going to change. That's the biggest problem with the situation, because you could be Moses, understand the changes, but there's a whole bunch of people behind you that's following you that are not going to change with you. And you could deal with them for 40 years or whatever until the next trend comes around. But the most amazing thing is to see like an artist who has transformed themselves with the time successfully without diluting who they really are. In the same sense, executives should be doing the same. When I grew up, executive was just one fold, one dimension. Today, for you to be an executive, you can't just be a desk person. You got to be creative. You got to know what's going on. You got to be able to create the content. So for me, everything has been a life lesson. And I take it everything for what it is as an appreciation, even all the bad, because it showed me how to be the better. And everything, like I said, as long as you in this business, you get in what you put in. So there's always going to be a whole bunch of people complaining, oh, this industry is all messed up. Since I got in, there's always been that crowd of people that said this industry is always messed up. When you go to a barbershop, there's always that crowd of people that says everything's all messed up. I shy away from negative people like that because I need to be in sunshine. You see me glowing out here, loving life. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to.
Right.
They want to keep dark. Stay. Do what you got to do for yourself, B. But that's not the way I roll. That's not the way I live. And while you're over there complaining, we're over here trying to figure it out.
That's right.
That's what life is for me. That's what I do.
I can dig it. I can dig it. I coming back to you.
All right, we're gonna take another quick break. We'll be right back here on 95 South TV. Okay, we back here on 95 South TV. So I got a question. Let's go back. So this thing that irks me more than anything over the years in hip hop, the whole Ja Rule, DMX era and Jay-Z era, when they came in with that infusion of music and culture, and everybody, a lot of people, when Ja Rule was hot as fish grease, people when 50 kind of destroyed his career, people act like Ja Rule was just like he was Vanilla Ice or somebody, like he was just like irrelevant, like he didn't mean anything. And to me, Ja Rule, DMX, Jay-Z, that moment in time was probably one of the biggest shifts in hip hop history, and pretty much made a undeniable mark forever on hip hop. What's your opinion on that time?
I think one of my biggest understandings of that time is that the one person you should really think about is when you mention all that is Irv Gotti, because Irv Gotti was the guy that brought all this stuff to Def Jam. As much as you hear the stories that Leo did this, Leo did that, Leo didn't give him the opening right away. He came in as an A&R because he wanted Jay-Z, but they didn't understand DMX, they didn't understand Ja Rule. You know, there's a certain set of people that are always going to be sour, but while people are saying that, one, those people never made records that sold any equivalent or created anything that created any kind of movement like that. All they have is just opinions. Two, while people are saying that, these records sold worldwide, millions of records. You know, so again, where are you walking to? If you're hanging out with those negative Nancy's, you know what I'm saying, and inside there and always that, you're gonna deal with that, saying, "Oh, that's not real. That's not whatever." You know what's real? The impact they had on life, the impact they had around the world. That local guy that's real locally is not making a move, changing, inspiring anybody. You look at one of DMX's concerts. Wow, you know,
Yeah.
he makes people cry.
Yeah.
He's got energy, man. That's amazing. You know, even Jay-Z, you hear a concert with him and get in time, it's got a lot of hits. Ja Rule too. He'll be having you holla, holla, holla by the third song. You know what I'm saying? And you forget about what these dummies say. You know what I mean? Because who the hell cares? The only people that give them a weight to the voice is you. It's you who allow them. Because you see the reality. You know what I'm saying? Their opinion don't matter. These people sold records. They became iconic. When these people die, nobody cares about their opinion of who they are.
So let me ask you this question, because I tell the story every now and then. So when DMX passed away, and I watched a couple of celebrity funerals like a couple of times in the past. But when his funeral came on or whatever on streaming, I remember sitting in a Denny's, and it was so impactful and so like almost on a spiritual level that I broke down in tears. I had to literally go back into my car to compose myself. And I used to have this DMX shirt that I used to wear around that time after he passed, and I would be in New York and in Jersey area, and I would bump into people that actually knew DMX, and they were giving me these stories on a spiritual level. So you being around DMX, like what on that part of DMX as far as the spirituality, did you see it when you was around him at times?
All these people that I just mentioned carried their own energy, and they were who they were. You know, DMX, one of the first things Leo would play when he would play DMX's music for you would be a sermon. And you're there, first of all, thinking, what the heck? Because I came here to listen to a rapper. Then you hear what you really want, and then saying after the second song, the third song. And all these people had that energy, you know. Everyone has different perspectives, just like you meeting your favorite baseball player, you know, or basketball player, and you meet LeBron on the wrong day, you know. All these people carried their own energy, and all these people were who they were. They weren't just personalities made up, you know.
Okay, so real quick, the question for you: top 5, because I heard LL did his top 5 Def Jam artists of all time, and he got some pushback for the artist that he picked. So who would you say would be your Mount Rushmore of Def Jam artists?
Wow, really trying to kill me out here on the internet. Huh? It's like trying to, so people just come at me and be like, "Yo, what the hell are you talking about?" Wow, I don't even know where to start with that, man. Because for me, I go through so many songs, and if you start playing some songs, it's hard to pick from the Jingling Baby to the Reasonable Doubt era to the Red Man, and then you hear some PE. Things are just like, for me, it's just basically so much song basis, so I can't say, oh, this is the only guy that belongs in slot 1. What I do say is that people like L.L.O.T.U.G is definitely in the top 5 over there, because he is like the forefront artist for what Def Jam is. He broke music when it wasn't music yet. And amazing career, amazing catalog. That's the most important thing about right now, is that you listen to artists and you're like, wow, they got a lot of hits. They could do a Vegas residency, in that regards. But it's hard for me to say, yes, I got top 5 here and that's all it is.
Gotcha.
So I won't kill myself out here.
So let's get into your record label, because I know you definitely want to talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about when you start your label and what is your purpose or your goal for your label.
My record label came in at a time when there was a lot of mixtapes, and so we decided to put out a mixtape label, and then it transcended into acquiring specific artists and trying to open up those doors in regards towards that. When I started doing all that, I realized that, money is a big factor. So you have to start being able to, this is not Def Jam where we have, this backing where you're able to write off things or do stuff. That's a fantasy, So what I was working with was like, even though I was on a major, it was an independent major. No different than, let's just say, like 4th and Broadway back in the day or something in that regards. It's just that I was able to create momentum with PR at the time in the digital world to be able to scope out the label and bring its presence to a bigger platform. And in doing that, I didn't also just do the formula of like signing the next New York guy that's everyone competing for. I basically opened up the situation to become a label service situation where people were able to take their projects, fix their projects, put them out, get stuff done, production, videos, all that stuff that they couldn't do on their own. And I did that for a couple of years until we got to the point of COVID. And then it got into COVID, and then I'm just like, okay, this can't get done because people don't have budgets no more in regards to being able to suffice their dream or their stuff. So then I just started that's when I started going really into the beat making aspect of it. And just like you see in Hustle and Flow, we were just making music so that we could get out of that space of poverty and out of that space of like, hey, this is ending, this is a wrap. That's great for that. But at that time, also too, bigger competitors started coming around. So people like S.T.I.L.L created like, the United Artists that totally took like what the concept was early of Affluent and just brought it to the stockbrokers and blew it up. So if that's a better mechanism, why am I going to try to fight that when the money's out of hand in there? So I realized that I'm the talent. Let me just focus on being the creative producer and beat maker and video producer and creating now what was early, and now they call it content, a content creator. And that's what I focus basically on. I was working with an artist for a couple of years about A-list, and it showed me how to be able to get out into the independent market and work with companies like Instagram and TikTok and see the effect of what they have, being able to promote videos through there instead of going through standard channels that were now dying, because nobody really cares about having your video on BT. You know, everyone rather have their video on Instagram and TikTok. So it's a whole different life, and I transcended with that life to be where I'm at. Right now, I'm focusing on creating a new series, you know, just like you would see 50 Cent's create his. I got my team and trying to create that, and still working with the process of music. So where right now music is more pop and R&B oriented, coming into there, that's what I'm focusing my production on and trying to find artists of that nature. The brand became a brand, but it became also part of my identity. And I didn't focus it on leading my identity. You know what I'm saying? I created my own efforts around that brand.
We're going to take one last break, and we're going to come right back here on 95 South TV. Okay, we back. Shout out our affiliate, Zeno FM, 191 countries. But Jacob, listen, we got to do a part 2, because we just scratching the surface with this guy. I got so many questions in my dang head, and we about to run out of time.
Hey man, we are, but I remember me hearing Uncle Rush say this, cause I used to get the Global Grind newsletter all the time
All right.
through my email, right, and I heard Uncle Rush say, if you're inspired to do something or be somebody, you can do this. But just remember, where there is a service to be rendered, there's work to be done.
Yes, indeed.
Man, and so I feel like you can never create too many services, and there's always gonna be work to be done. And a lot of times the people that we meet may not want the work done, but they know somebody that want the work done, and that person knows somebody. So when the work is sufficient, and the work is great, word is gonna travel. I believe that word of mouth travels faster than anything else ever. No matter what era we in, the analog, the digital era, but word of mouth travels fast because
To a
people
certain
gonna do.
degree, because it gets you in one factor, word of mouth will get you maybe an attention, but it doesn't always factor in your execution, and basically you want to center yourself and poise yourself in as much as possible places or with people to actually understand your value, because
Right.
in this industry you could be doing all that and you will just frustrate yourself the hell out, because where you should be getting 5,000, 10,000 for certain things, you're dealing with people that are trying to scrounge you out for $25 instead.
That's true. That's very true. Indeed.
And
True indeed.
us living in these platforms, around, just because people speak about a certain thing or they speak about music or speak about that, doesn't give them the whole aspect that they know the value of you or that subject. So it's mostly really important, just like I did when I was younger, of pointing yourself, being in the right people's circle. If you want to be a millionaire, you definitely need to be hanging around millionaires. Now, if you don't got the money, of course, you're not going to be able to walk through that door. So you got to be clever enough to have some other, let's just say, je ne sais quoi, some other energy to be bringing to the table that's going to allure them into that and open that.
Wow.
If you're around a bunch of deadbeats, man, a bunch of people that hang on, and this is something that's really important in the industry, because, like I said, before you even touch a mic, you have already 5 people that already have you in a whole boss perspective, and they want to write a narrative about you, or this or that. You got to be able to realize to leave those people behind and not be a part of those circles. You know what I'm saying? Because those people will not bring you to where you got to go. whatsoever. And instead of you fighting for reaching to the top, you're out there fighting for so you won't drown in a lake that
Man,
you shouldn't have been swimming in.
man, you said a mouthful. Man.
Hey,
Oh boy, you need to put that on a t-shirt. For real, for real.
well, brother, I appreciate you coming on our show tonight. Like I said, we got to definitely do a part two because I wanted to get in some grave digger and PM Don questions and all
Wow,
that.
the G Street Records, that era, yes, they're great people. That whole time, you know what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
also worked with Tragedy Gaddafi at that time, you know,
Wow.
and he had a great presence at G Street Records, and you know, it was a great stuff. I got to meet India Davenport, the artists that were there, and it was a different time because I was in marketing, I wasn't in A&R. But like I said, part two, we'll figure that out.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
and then part two, I definitely want to get into Ruckus Records and Loud Records as well.
Loud Records was the same time that we were doing Violator really quick. You know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
Violator, Loud had all these artists, but Chris Lighty had the direction for Mobb Deep. You know what I'm saying? And they had the music, but to create all that stuff, Chris was right there at the helm. You know, so his knowledge was able to break, Busta Rhymes, Q-Tip, and Tribe Called Quest, and circulating with all different labels, all different label heads, and being able to manage them to be to where they became iconic and classic. You know,
And you know
Right,
what's
right,
crazy?
right, right.
Kind of crazy because I just thought about this before we get out of here. And we actually interview people like yourself because you're the unsung hero. You're the person who doesn't that people, the industry may know who you are, and certain artists know who you are, but the world may not always know who Oscar Sanchez is. You know what I mean? So these are the type of people that we like to interview. The people
well,
that
that's why not to cut you off, but that's why I actually make music because what's so funny is that we live and die on this earth, right? And
Right.
people know us for certain efforts. When you have a certain scope, you're just known by your family. And I realize that, sometimes you hear about people in the neighborhood and certain stories. So one thing one day was an effect that someone told me, oh, wow, you worked on this record. I know that changed my life. Another person told me, I heard this record. I saw you got the plaque for it, you know, and they were just like, I almost killed myself at that time. But these songs helped me. So that made me say, like, wow, that's amazing that some of the stuff that some of the artists put together change people in that perspective that you don't know about. It's not about the sale of the record, it's the impact you've made on certain people. And in doing that, now, I have production, I have songs out, not where I'm rapping, but music, producer, what I'm saying, getting stuff, instrumentals out and all that. And that made me realize, wow, that's how you live forever, my brother, because people know your music. People know what you've done. Like when I hear a Whitney Houston song, wow, tears. You know what I'm saying? When I hear a Jeff Red song, wow, energy makes me still want to get up on the dance floor. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Right.
when you hear music, that energy, you still live. You live forever with that. And that's what's amazing. That's why so many of us even like whether you're on a small scope or on a big scope, you're in the mix and your music will live on forever. You might not think it today, but someone might pick it up for licensing later. You know what I'm saying?
I
Or
appreciate you coming on. And if there's any information you want to give out as far as contact or where people can find you or whatever, you go ahead and give us that now.
we're always open to work with new artists, especially young artists trying to come up. So you can just email me direct music of what you've done, links and all that stuff at Oscar Sanchez at affluentrecords.com. To contact me right directly there. Don't send me just whatever. Send me some music, some links that I've heard, and the contact number for yourself. And be sincere.
Well, Jacob, closed mouth don't get fed, so we need to go ahead and that COG music.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I send it to him. I give it over to him for sure.
Yeah, Yeah, that's my son and his artists or whatever. My son has been in the music. He actually stayed up there in Albany, New York, doing music and film up that way. You know what I mean? So
Let's hear it. So let me hear it when Jacob hits me. You know what I mean?
no doubt, no
Yes,
doubt.
sir.
I appreciate you coming on, brother. And like you said, we're gonna definitely schedule a part 2. And you know what I'm saying? Like I tell everybody, I see you at the top. You know what I'm saying? We see you at the top. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, my brother, let me just say a quick shout out to the good people all around me. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my son Jordan. Shout out to music attorney Cassandra Spangler, personal attorney Phyllis Duffy, all the good people, my team, Joseph Asbury at Sharp Lens and CT Photography, Curtis. You know, we're making these videos, we're making these new steps, and we're looking forward to the future. So shout out to everybody I've worked with and looking forward to a new life right now, my brother.
All right, no doubt, no doubt. All
Right.
right. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings.
Absolutely.
Brown skin girl, and she knew I was out to go and clear my mind.